15 minutes past 9.
All about games. It's Games Junkie Gerard Campbell from stuff.co.nz.
Let's play tonight.
Well, that there is a peculiar sound. What could it be? Well, I'm telling you, it's an absolute classic. Well, its original form is an absolute classic. It's Bejeweled. It's Bejeweled 2, in fact. And that's just one of the games that we're looking at today with Gerard Campbell, our Game Junkie NZ on Twitter. And, of course, you can find his blog at stuff.co.nz. Hello to you, Gerard.
Hello to you, Glenn. How are you today?
Very well. Now, you just got an iPod Touch over the last week.
Oh, yes, I did. I was very lucky. I've joined the iPod Touch family, and I think, what does the ad say? They call it the most funnest iPod ever, or something, is it?
Yeah, probably. It's basically, an iPod Touch is an iPhone without the phone capabilities.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's it seems to be a really strong multi sort of media, handheld. And I think that I actually read somebody asked Steve Jobs at Apple why didn't have a camera in it, and I think he said. And I'm sure I heard him say that, he said, because it's to play games. So I think Apple are really making a big push with the Touch as a games machine.
Yeah.
I think I also heard somebody that, Jobs said he also wants to try and compete against, the PSP and the Nintendo DS. So obviously Apple are really serious about the capabilities of the Touch as a games machine. So that's what I'm really keen on looking at and just seeing what sort of quality the games are, really.
Yeah, so what are your impressions so far with what's available out there?
I've had a wee look. I mean, one of the first ones that I downloaded was one called Tap Tap Revenge, and there are a lot, there are a lot of free ones and a lot of paid for ones, and the sort of paid ones seem to sort of vary from about $4.99 to $15.99, and there's a whole range of puzzles and action, and Tap Tap Revenge is it's almost like a Guitar Hero type game where you've got scrolling notes that you have to, beat in time. But of course, the one that you showed and the one that I'm absolutely adoring is Bejeweled 2, which is one that I've played on the PC and on the Xbox 360 before. And it's one of those. I think it's one of those ones perfectly suited to the iPod and the Touch because, effectively what you're doing is you're rearranging, coloured diamonds or coloured jewels to try and get combinations and they'll explode.
It's been the classic time waster at work for many years now on its PC version, isn't it?
Oh, it has been. And it's amazing. It's, and now in its mobile form, I'm finding that, if you've got a couple of spare minutes in the day, you'll just pull out that Touch and you'll actually play a couple of games because it's, it's. I think what PopCap games have done with it is it's simple. It's a really simple, complex concept, but it's fiendishly addictive. I think you talk to anybody who's played it.
Yeah.
When it's on PC or wherever, and they'll tell you that it's a fiendishly addictive game that you just want to try and see how many combinations you can get and how many super jewels you can make and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think
it's right up there with Tetris, right? And its simplicity, but
yes.
gameplay is so addictive.
Oh, very much so. Yep, I think that and Tetris would be, two of the classic, simplistic but really, really addictive time wasters, and I think that's perfect for the mobile form. That's what you want. You want to be able to pull out your console or your handheld and have a few minutes gaming time. So so Bejeweled 2, that's one that's got my attention at the moment. But I've heard that Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars is coming to the iPhone and the iPod Touch in November. So that's another big, and of course big companies like EA have already got games like The Sims and Need for Speed and FIFA and the NFL series on the iPod as well. So
right, well from what I've seen, like the graphics on these iPod games, iPhone games look really good. But what about actual playing like with your fingers? Like, particularly, I'm looking at Bejeweled now. There's a lot of jewels on the screen. and the screen isn't that big. So
No.
how do you go selecting things?
Initially I had a wee bit of trouble because I think the difficulty is that you've got to be quite precise with which jewel you select. So, because with Bejeweled, you've only got a set number, like if you do it in the classic mode, you've only got a set number of moves to try and fill up the energy bar or the level bar at the bottom, and if you run out of moves, that's it, game over. But I found initially that you can sometimes inadvertently hit the wrong jewel, so you'll lose a move.
Right.
But I guess, and I guess the same with the touch is the same thing with typing on it, that you've got to probably make a bit more of a conscious effort to do it. As you said, I mean, the screen's not small, the screen's not large, so yeah, there are times that I'd hit the wrong jewel or I'd lose a move. But
Okay.
I think you sort of adjust to it. You sort of rethink about using it.
Do you ever get the I don't know? I get a funny feeling when I sort of touch a screen sort of too much. You get your fingers get a little bit sore, or just like you're like, oh, I don't want to touch it like that anymore. I don't know, or is it just me? Am I a bit odd in that respect?
It might just be you. Although I was told yesterday that my daughter told me that I've got the perfect fingers for the touch because I chew my fingernails, so I don't have fingernails. So
Right.
because she said that she's found that with fingernails, touching the screen is a wee bit harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one benefit of chewing my fingernails. But I guess if you stab at the screen really dramatically, or you're probably gonna hurt your fingers a wee. But I haven't had any problems so far. Wammo, sorry.
All right. Well, I don't own an iPhone or a iPod Touch yet to know. So really, and I actually haven't picked one up. It was just my previous experience with touchscreens. So you're really looking forward to those other titles coming up as well.
Which ones? The other ones we've got coming out this week?
Yeah,
game-wise?
no, the other ones on the iPod. You're really looking forward to the ones that EA are bringing out, and
yeah. Well, I mean, someone told me that Simcity, I think, which is on it, is another really addictive one. So I want to have a look at that one, and I'm sort of severely tempted at downloading FIFA or one of the NFL ones. I think just to see how they the classic console games translate to that smaller touch screen. And I mean, and I think the versions of Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil there somewhere too.
yeah.
So you're just interested, and it's an interesting sort of platform for them to go into. But I think it shows that they're taking it as a serious gaming device.
It'd also be interesting in the coming weeks, as you start to play some of these games, whether or not you will prefer these bigger game titles that have been converted to the iPod or iPhone, or you'll prefer the more simpler Bejeweled type games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm really interested if I can try and get hold of the GTA Chinatown Wars for the Touch, because it originally came out on the Nintendo DS, and it made great use of the DS's touchscreen, and that was its sort of selling point.
Yeah.
And then it's coming to the PSP, and it's lost that touchscreen, so they're going to have to implement things a wee bit more. So now I'm especially keen to see how it works on the iPod, because with the touchscreen capabilities back, it'd be interesting to see whether it's very similar to the way that the DS version works. So yes, it's going to be interesting to see how, after a while, whether you prefer the really bite-sized time-wasted ones like Bejeweled or Tetris, or whether the more meaty versions, which whether they'll take my fancy, and after a few weeks, I think.
Okay, very quickly before we go, a wee roundup of what else is spinning your wheels at the moment. What else are you playing and looking forward to?
Looking forward to this week. We've got a couple of really big releases coming out. We've got Uncharted 2. That's on the Sony PlayStation 3. That's exclusive for that console. And like the first Uncharted, I still consider that's probably one of the best games for the PS3 ever so far. It's a sort of a Tomb Raider-esque sort of adventuring, sort of swashbuckling hero type one, but Uncharted 2 is looking absolutely superb. We've got Brutal Legend coming out this week from EA, from famed game designer Tim Schafer, and it's got Jack Black as the main character. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. Yeah, it'll be. It's a classic sort of Tim Schafer humour with a heavy metal soundtrack and sort of you play a a sort of a heavy metal roadie called Eddie Riggs, and he gets transported into this sort of heavy metal world, so he's got to defeat demons and that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to those two this week. Game-wise, I've got to admit that although I've got 2 or 3 piling up on my desk at the moment, the one that's still sucking all my time at the moment is still Batman Arkham Asylum.
Oh, still chewing through that. Enjoying it?
Still chewing oh, very much so, yeah. You know, I mean, some of the boss battles aren't as epic as I would have thought they could have been, but I think the fact that the game's got such high production values and it's just Batman done really well, I think is part of its appeal. And how about you? What have you been up to this week, Wammo?
Halo 3, managed to finish that on the weekend. I know I'm probably 2 years too late, but it was. I now understand what all the fuss was about and why it was so hyped, because it is an excellent game, and I'm looking forward to playing ODST. And I'm just starting another old title, old as far as games go now, Call of Duty 4 as well. Hey,
nice.
Gerard, nice to talk to you once again. And people want to hit you up, they can hit you up on Twitter, twitter.com/GameJunkieNZ. Also, they'll find your blog at stuff.co.nz. Gerard, see you later.
Thank you very much, Wammo.